Hey there, amazing friends. I warmly invite you to join me on this exciting journey by subscribing to my channel, liking, commenting, and sharing my videos. Every like, comment, and share brings us closer together and fuels my passion to create more great content. Your support truly makes all the difference. Thank you for being the heart of this community. The Enchanted Mirrors Portal, the supernatural image that changes its reflection at night. The old manor had always whispered secrets through the ivy-choked walls and creaking floorboards long before I ever set foot inside. I arrived on a windswept autumn evening, the sky a tapestry of bruised purples and deep blues, when the chill in the air promised that the night held more than just falling temperatures. Inheriting the estate from a distant relative it never met, I was both curious and hesitant. The sprawling mansion, isolated on a hill where the earth met an endless dark forest, exuded an aura of abandonment and mystery, a relic of bygone eras that seemed to be holding its breath, waiting for someone to uncover its hidden tales. Stepping through the heavy oak door, I was greeted by a silence so profound it seemed almost tangible. Dust motes danced lazily in the single beam of light that pierced the gloom, and the air carried the faint aroma of aged wood and forgotten memories. Every step I took echoed in the vast emptiness of the foyer, and with each echo, my heart pounded in anticipation of what lay hidden within. I recalled the scribbled note in the will, a cryptic reference to an enchanted mirror whose reflection changed as the night deepened. Although I initially dismissed it as a fanciful flourish meant to intrigue an unsuspecting heir, the allure of the unknown quickly overpowered my skepticism. As I began to explore the labyrinthine corridors of the mansion, each room seemed to possess its own personality. The library, with its rows of dusty, leather-bound tomes, whispering untold stories. The parlor, where faded portraits observed me silently from their gilded frames. And the grand hall, with a towering chandelier that still, inexplicably, shimmered as if it remembered the glory days of lavish gatherings. But it was in the east wing, a narrow, seldom visited section of the manor, that I found the object that would forever change my life. Behind a heavy velvet curtain in a room that smelled of ancient incense and mystery stood an enormous, ornately framed mirror. Its silver glass was marred by delicate scratches and swirling patterns that almost seemed to pulse with a hidden life of their own. During the day, the mirror offered only the reflection of the empty room around it, its surface catching stray beams of sunlight and scattering them in soft, almost reassuring patterns. However, as twilight gave way to night, subtle differences began to emerge. At first, I noticed that the reflection in the mirror lagged behind my movements, as if it were trapped in a slow dance with time itself. I rationalized it as a trick of the light, or the effect of my own weariness after a long day of travel. But as night after night passed, the discrepancies grew bolder. At precisely midnight, when the manor was shrouded in darkness and silence, the mirror's surface would ripple like disturbed water, revealing images that bore little resemblance to the present. One night, as I sat in a creaking armchair near the fireplace, trying to calm the restless feeling in my chest, I heard a sound, a soft, almost imperceptible whisper that seemed to emanate from the direction of the mirror. I hesitated, feeling both fear and an inexplicable pull to confront whatever mystery lay hidden there. Drawing myself up with as much courage as I could muster, I approached the mirror. In the dim glow of a single candle, I stared deeply into its depths. The reflection was not my own. Instead, I saw the faint outline of a woman dressed in garments that belonged to another century, a gown of deep emerald that shimmered as though woven from moonlight. Her eyes, though barely visible, seemed to hold sorrow and a warning, as if she were pleading for liberation or desperate for an escape from a curse that had bound her to that glass prison. My rational mind urged me to dismiss the vision as a trick of light and imagination, but the sensation that something had reached out from within that mirror was too profound to ignore. The next day, I began scouring the mansion for any records that might explain the mirror's origin. Hidden in a forgotten drawer of an ancient writing desk in the study, I discovered a brittle, handwritten journal belonging to an ancestor named Marjorie Blackwood. Her entries spoke in cryptic, lyrical language of a mirror that was not merely a looking glass, but a portal, a threshold between realms where time converges and lost souls linger in half-light. Marjorie described nights when the mirror would reveal scenes of tragedies long past, secrets too terrible to be forgotten, and even glimmers of another world where the rules of nature were suspended. One passage in particular sent a shiver down my spine. When the clock strikes midnight, the mirror shows more than our reflection. It reflects the unburied truths of our souls and the phantoms that forever haunt the corridors of our history. Haunted by the journal's revelations, I found myself unable to shake the lure of the mirror. Each night, as darkness cloaked the mansion, I would retreat to the secluded room where the mirror hung, my heart pounding in anticipation of what new revelation might appear. I began to document every anomaly, each flicker of a spectral face, each ripple in the reflection that defied the laws of physics, and every moment when the mirror seemed to breathe with a life all its own. With a trembling hand, I recorded the details in my own journal, trying desperately to capture the ephemeral images that danced at the edge of perception. At first, the mirror showed nothing more than fleeting images, a glimpse of a dark corridor where no such corridor existed in the physical space, or the brief outline of a figure that vanished as quickly as it had appeared. But soon, the visions grew more coherent. One night, I witnessed the mirror display a scene from what appeared to be an entirely different era, a lavish ball held in a grand hall where elegantly dressed guests danced under a cascade of shimmering light. The figures moved with an ethereal grace, and for a moment I could almost hear the strains of a forgotten waltz. Yet, as quickly as the scene emerged, it faded into darkness, leaving me questioning whether I had merely dreamt it or glimpsed a parallel existence. The intensity of these experiences began to seep into my waking hours. I found myself glancing at the mirror even during the day, half expecting to see something out of place. At times, I would catch a glimpse of the same spectral woman I had seen on my first encounter, her eyes filled with a longing that transcended time and space. Sleep became a tenuous luxury as the nights wore on, and the boundary between reality and the mirror's world began to blur. I started to feel as if I was being drawn into the mirror, pulled by an unseen force that promised answers to questions I had not yet dared to ask. In the deep hours of the night, I would awaken to find the mirror's surface glowing with an unearthly luminescence, its reflection showing scenes that defied explanation, a crumbling cathedral under a blood-red sky, or a storm-tossed sea with a lone, ghostly ship sailing towards an uncertain horizon. The more I observed, the more I felt that these images were not random, but part of a larger tapestry, a story of love, loss, and eternal entrapment that spanned generations. Desperation led me to consult the records left behind by Marjorie Blackwood. I learned that the mirror had been commissioned by an enigmatic sorcerer, a man whose reputation for dabbling in the forbidden arts was whispered about in hushed tones in the oldest corners of the family lore. The sorcerer, it seemed, had imbued the mirror with a fragment of his own soul, a piece of darkness meant to guard the portal between worlds. His intentions, as Marjorie's journal hinted, were not entirely malevolent. He had sought to capture beauty and preserve it against the ravages of time, even if it meant damning a part of himself in the process. The mirror, therefore, was both a work of art and a curse, a relic that bridged the gap between the living and the dead, between memory and oblivion. Armed with this knowledge, I embarked on a journey to unravel the mystery of the enchanted mirror. Each subsequent night became a battle of wills, a struggle to maintain control over my own mind while being seduced by the mirror's siren call. The visions intensified. I began to see not only scenes of another era, but also images that seemed to predict events in my own life. In one particularly vivid experience, I saw my own reflection slowly distorting, replaced by a gaunt, sorrowful figure with eyes that bore the weight of centuries. This figure, I realized with a jolt of terror, was trying to communicate a warning, its silent gaze imploring me to heed the dangers that lay ahead. I tried to speak aloud, to ask the figure what it wanted, but no sound emerged from my throat, as if the mirror had stolen my voice along with my sense of security. Days merged with nights in a disorienting blur. I stopped venturing beyond the confines of the mansion, afraid that the outside world might interrupt the tenuous connection I had forged with the mirror. I began to see my reflection not only when I looked into the glass, but in every reflective surface, a window, a puddle, even the polished wood of an antique cabinet. Each reflection carried a hint of that ghostly presence, a reminder that something was watching me from beyond the veil of ordinary perception. I became convinced that the mirror was a living entity, a portal that was actively feeding on my fear and curiosity, drawing me deeper into its enigmatic depths. One night, when the wind howled outside like a chorus of lost souls, the mirror's power reached its zenith. I had barely slept, my mind fraying at the edges from the constant barrage of spectral images and cryptic messages. The room was bathed in the eerie glow of moonlight filtering through a small, dusty window when the mirror began to pulsate with a life of its own. The glass rippled as though stirred by an invisible hand, and the images within coalesced into a singular, overwhelming vision. I saw the spectral woman once again, but this time she was not alone. Around her gathered countless figures, their faces etched with despair and longing, each one seemingly trapped in a moment of agony or regret. The scene unfolded like a living tapestry of sorrow, a portrait of souls forever caught between worlds, yearning for redemption or escape. In that moment, I felt an overwhelming urge to step forward, to reach out and touch the mirror, as if doing so might bridge the gap between my lonely existence and the multitude of voices trapped within. My hand trembled as it hovered over the cool, smooth surface, and for a heartbeat, time seemed to slow to a crawl. I could feel the weight of centuries pressing down on me, the cumulative sorrow of lives lost and dreams shattered. Then, with a force that defied explanation, the mirror's surface quivered, and I felt as if I were being drawn in, as though the very essence of the glass was beckoning me to cross its threshold. I fought the irresistible pull, battling against the lure of the unknown, even as my rational mind screamed for caution. In that surreal moment, I recalled Marjorie Blackwood's final entry, a plea for future generations to resist the mirror's seductive call, for its beauty was intertwined with a terrible curse that could ensnare even the strongest of wills. Summoning every ounce of inner strength, I tore my hand away and staggered back, my heart hammering in my chest, as if trying to break free of the bonds that threatened to consume me. The room seemed to shudder in sympathy, as though acknowledging the profound sacrifice of resisting the portal's call. In the days that followed, the mansion seemed to regain a semblance of normality, yet the mirror remained a constant, unnerving presence, a silent sentinel guarding its secrets. I resolved to research ancient lore and occult manuscripts in hopes of finding a way to sever the mirror's hold over me and perhaps free the tortured souls it imprisoned. Late into the nights, by the light of a flickering candle, I pored over dusty tomes and yellowed pages that spoke of portals, enchanted objects, and the thin line that separated our world from realms beyond. The more I read, the more I realized that the mirror was not an isolated phenomenon throughout history. there had been whispers of similar objects, mirrors that revealed not only one's physical appearance, but also the innermost secrets and darkest fears of those who dared to gaze upon them. As I delved deeper into these occult studies, I began to experience a strange duality. On one hand, the mirror's haunting visions filled me with terror. On the other, they imbued me with a peculiar sense of destiny, as if I had been chosen to witness truths that lay hidden from ordinary eyes. The mirror was, in its own twisted way, a repository of memory, a cosmic archive of every sorrow, every joy, and every regret that had ever passed through the mansion's walls. Each night, as the clock neared midnight, I would find myself inexorably drawn back to its side, compelled to decipher the cryptic messages it conveyed through its shifting images. Sometimes the messages were fleeting, a single word scrawled across the glass, or a fleeting image of a forgotten face, but often they were overwhelming, a torrent of visions that left me breathless and trembling long after I had closed my eyes. One particularly stormy night, as thunder rattled the ancient walls and lightning illuminated the dark corners of the mansion, the mirror presented a vision unlike any I had seen before. I sat in a worn velvet armchair, wrapped in a tattered shawl for warmth, when I noticed that the mirror's surface was no longer static. Instead, it had become a window into a tumultuous realm where the sky burned with an unearthly hue and the ground was shrouded in perpetual twilight. In the center of this surreal landscape stood a solitary figure, a man whose face was both familiar and enigmatic. His eyes, dark and brooding, held a depth of sorrow and wisdom that spoke of endless centuries. In his hand, he held a small, intricately carved box, and as he moved closer to the mirror, I realized that he was beckoning me. His gesture was silent but insistent, an invitation to unravel the mystery of the box, and by extension, the enigma of the mirror itself. I felt a powerful compulsion to obey, to step through the looking glass and into a realm where the boundaries of time and space no longer applied. Yet a rational part of my mind cautioned me against such reckless abandon. Was I prepared to risk my very soul by venturing into a world where the rules of reality were so cruelly distorted? The question tormented me, yet in that moment, the longing to understand, coupled with a desperate need to free the restless spirits captured within the mirror, overwhelmed any lingering doubt. I rose unsteadily, drawn to the mirror as if by an unseen tether, and in a final act of surrender, I reached out to touch its cool surface. The contact was electric, a jolt that sent shockwaves of both pain and ecstasy through my entire being. For an instant, I was no longer in the mansion. I was suspended in a realm of shifting colors and ephemeral shapes, a twilight world where every sensation was heightened beyond measure. The ghostly man with the carved box stood before me, his eyes meeting mine with an intensity that felt as though they were peering into the deepest recesses of my soul. In that suspended moment, words were unnecessary. Our silent exchange conveyed all the anguish, hope, and longing of lifetimes. He gestured toward the box, and in his eyes I saw the unspoken promise of liberation, a chance to break the mirror's curse and to restore balance to the haunted legacy that had plagued our family for generations. In the surreal domain beyond the glass, I felt the weight of destiny pressing down upon me. The air was thick with the scent of ancient incense and the sound of distant, mournful music, as if the very fabric of this twilight realm was woven from the remnants of forgotten dreams. With trembling determination, I nodded, accepting the silent invitation. The ghostly figure extended his hand, and as our fingers brushed, a cascade of images flooded my mind. Memories of a life I never lived, the sorrow of lost loves, the silent lament of souls trapped in an eternal limbo. I understood then that the mirror was not merely an object of haunting beauty. It was a vessel for the unresolved grief and unfulfilled promises of generations past. The vision receded as abruptly as it had come, and I found myself once again in the dim light of the mansion's room. The mirror, now calm and seemingly benign, reflected only my own bewildered face. Yet I was irrevocably changed. The encounter had left an indelible mark on my psyche, a realization that the boundary between the living and the dead was far more porous than I had ever imagined. The carved box, however, had vanished from the spectral realm, leaving behind only the lingering echo of its mysterious promise. Determined to honor the silent pact I had made, I resolved to continue my quest for answers, even as the mirror's influence grew ever more potent. Over the ensuing weeks, I meticulously chronicled every detail of my experiences, comparing them with the faded accounts in Marjorie Blackwood's journal and the obscure passages I had uncovered in ancient grimoires. Each night, as I sat before the mirror, I began to decipher a pattern in the visions, a narrative thread woven through the images that hinted at a tragic love story, a forbidden romance that had been torn asunder by the inexorable forces of fate. The spectral woman I had first seen seemed to be at the center of it all, a figure of both beauty and sorrow, whose eyes conveyed the eternal agony of unfulfilled desire. In one particularly poignant vision, I witnessed her reaching out to a man shrouded in darkness, their hands nearly touching before an unseen force tore them apart. The heartbreak etched on her face was unmistakable, and I felt as if I were witnessing a moment of history that had been locked away, only to be released through the mirror's uncanny power. The mansion itself began to mirror the turmoil of my inner world. Whispers echoed through the empty halls, and I would catch fleeting shadows dancing along the walls, as if the very building were alive with the memories of its past. Nights were punctuated by the sound of soft, mournful music, a melody that seemed to emanate from the mirror, stirring up long-forgotten emotions buried deep within me. I found solace and dread in equal measure in these nocturnal vigils, knowing that each vision was a step closer to understanding the mirror's true nature, even as it threatened to unravel the very fabric of my reality. One evening, after a particularly harrowing night of visions that left me shivering and drenched in sweat, I resolved to confront the mirror directly. With the journal clutched tightly in my hand and my heart pounding like a war drum, I stepped into the dim room where the mirror hung in silent vigil. The air was heavy with the scent of damp stone and aged wood, and every creak of the floorboard beneath my feet seemed amplified in the stillness of the night. I stood before the mirror and spoke aloud, addressing the spectral figure I believed was imprisoned within its depths. "Show me the truth," I demanded, my voice echoing off the walls. "Reveal to me the secret that binds you and free us both from this endless cycle of sorrow." For a long, agonizing moment, nothing happened. Then, as if in answer to my plea, the surface of the mirror began to shimmer with an inner light. Slowly, the image of the spectral woman reappeared, her eyes now brimming with an intensity that transcended mere despair. In a voice that resonated like a distant echo, she spoke, a sound that was both mournful and comforting. "The truth lies within the pain of forgotten memories and the promise of a love that could have been," she intoned. "But know this, to free us, you must confront the darkness that dwells not only in these haunted halls, but within your very soul." Her words sent a chill down my spine, yet they also ignited a spark of resolve. I understood that my journey was not merely one of discovery, but of personal transformation. The mirror was a portal, a gateway to the unspoken secrets of our shared past, and to free the trapped souls, I would have to embark on a journey into the depths of my own fears and regrets. That night, as the mansion groaned under the weight of ancient sorrow, I made a silent vow to unravel the mystery of the enchanted mirror and to free the voices that had long been silenced by the cruel hand of fate. In the days that followed, I dedicated myself to learning all I could about the occult lore surrounding enchanted objects and portals between worlds. I consulted with scholars of ancient mythology, delved into the esoteric manuscripts stored in the mansion's dilapidated library, and even reached out to a reclusive historian reputed to have knowledge of the supernatural. Each conversation, each dusty page I turned, seemed to add another piece to the puzzle, hinting at a long-forgotten ritual that could sever the mirror's hold over both the physical realm and the tortured souls trapped within. The ritual, as I eventually discovered, required an offering of one's own essence, a sacrifice that would bind the enchanter's spirit to the mirror for a final, decisive confrontation with the forces of darkness. Night after night, as the mirror's visions grew in both clarity and intensity, I began to experience a profound shift within myself. The boundaries between past and present, between dream and reality, blurred into a swirling mosaic of memories and emotions. I began to see fragments of my own history reflected in the mirror, a childhood spent in whispered bedtime stories of ghosts and magic, a longing for something beyond the mundane existence of everyday life. The mirror, it seemed, was not just a repository of ancestral sorrow, but a mirror of the soul, reflecting back the hidden depths of my own inner world. The culmination of my research came on a night when the mansion was shrouded in an impenetrable fog, the world outside reduced to a monochrome of shadows and distant echoes. I had gathered all the ingredients prescribed by the ancient texts: a vial of water from a sacred spring, a lock of hair from someone who had experienced true loss, and a small shard of obsidian said to be touched by the hand of the supernatural. With trembling hands, I arranged these objects around the mirror in a precise pattern described in Marjorie Blackwood's final, desperate entries. The air grew thick with anticipation as the clock neared midnight, every second stretching out like an eternity. In that charged moment, I recited the incantation, my voice steady despite the fear that gnawed at my insides. The words echoed in the silent room, reverberating off the walls, as if awakening ancient forces that had slumbered for centuries. As I finished the incantation, the mirror erupted in a dazzling display of light and shadow. The spectral figures that had haunted my nights converged into a swirling maelstrom of emotion and memory. I felt my own essence being drawn toward the mirror, a magnetic pull that threatened to engulf me in its tide of ancient sorrows and unspoken truths. For what felt like an eternity, I was suspended between two worlds, one foot in the tangible reality of the manor, the other in the spectral domain that lay beyond the glass. In that liminal space, I faced the darkness within myself, the regrets, the lost opportunities, and the deep-seated fear that had kept me from embracing the fullness of my own existence. It was as if the mirror was compelling me to confront every hidden wound and every buried secret. In a final surge of determination, I summoned every ounce of strength and stepped forward, crossing the threshold between the known and the unknown. The moment my skin brushed against the cold, silvery surface, the room exploded with a burst of luminous energy. The spectral figures around me reached out with desperate, pleading expressions, and I realized that I was not just witnessing their agony, I was sharing it. The mirror, the enchanted portal, was fusing my own soul with the accumulated sorrow of generations. In that excruciating instant, I felt every heartbreak, every betrayal, every moment of lost love that had ever been recorded in its depths. Time slowed to a crawl as I found myself standing face to face with the ghostly man who had beckoned me on that fateful stormy night. His eyes, filled with both hope and despair, met mine as he extended the carved box once more. In that silent communion, I understood that the box was the key, a repository for the unburied memories and unspoken promises of a long-forgotten love. With a trembling hand, I accepted the box, feeling a warmth radiate from it, that belied its apparent coldness. The act of accepting it felt like an acknowledgement, a recognition of the interconnectedness of all our sorrows and joys, both past and present. The mirror shuddered violently, and the room was filled with a cacophony of whispers, as if 1,000 voices were speaking at once. I felt as though I were caught in a maelstrom of emotions, each one tugging at my soul with relentless intensity. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the tumult subsided. The mirror's surface calmed, returning to the quiet, reflective stillness it had once possessed. The spectral figures faded, leaving behind a profound silence that resonated with both loss and hope. I stood there, clutching the carved box, my heart pounding with the realization that I had crossed an irrevocable threshold. In that singular, transformative moment, I had become both a witness and a participant in a saga that spanned generations, a saga of love, betrayal, sorrow, and redemption. The mirror had served its purpose as a portal, bridging the gap between the living and the dead, and in doing so, it had forever altered the course of my destiny. In the weeks that followed, I dedicated myself to unlocking the secrets of the carved box. Inside, I discovered a collection of letters, diaries, and delicate mementos, a chronicle of a tragic romance that had been meticulously concealed by time. The letters spoke of forbidden love between a noblewoman and a man of humble origins, their passion thwarted by the rigid constraints of society and the unyielding expectations of their respective families. Their words, written in a delicate, flowing hand, conveyed a longing so deep that it transcended the mortal coil. I spent countless hours poring over every detail, piecing together the narrative that had been so desperately hidden away. With each new discovery, I felt a growing kinship with the lost lovers, as if their story was intertwined with my own in ways that defied logical explanation. Slowly, the mansion began to transform as well. What had once been a cold, desolate relic now pulsed with a faint, melancholic vitality. The air seemed lighter, and the oppressive weight of the past lifted ever so slightly with each uncovered secret. Yet, despite these changes, the mirror remained, the silent, eternal guardian of memories both beautiful and tragic. I would often find myself drawn to it, not out of fear, but out of a deep, abiding respect for the power it held. The mirror had been a conduit for the souls of the past, a reminder that every life, no matter how ephemeral, left an indelible mark on the tapestry of existence. There were nights when the mirror still whispered its secrets to me. In those quiet hours, I would sit before it, the carved box resting on my lap, and let the visions wash over me. I saw moments of pure, unadulterated joy, the stolen kisses of the lovers under the silver light of the moon, the tender caresses shared in secret, and the soft smiles that spoke of promises made in the hush of twilight. These moments were interwoven with scenes of heartbreak and despair, the painful parting of souls, the silent cries in the dark, and the bitter resignation of lives that had been torn asunder by fate. Through it all, the mirror served as both a window and a mirror, reflecting not only the external manifestations of tragedy, but also the internal landscapes of our deepest emotions. I eventually came to understand that the mirror's enchantment was not merely a curse, but also a blessing, a catalyst that forced those who encountered it to confront the truths hidden in the recesses of their hearts. For me, it had become a teacher, guiding me through the labyrinth of memory and loss, and urging me to embrace the full spectrum of human experience, both light and dark. The spectral woman's sorrow had not been an isolated lament. It was a universal echo of all the unspoken grief and unfulfilled dreams that reside within each of us. In acknowledging her pain, I found a path toward healing, a way to reconcile the fractured parts of my own soul. As the autumn days gave way to a bitter winter, I resolved to share my experience with the world. I recorded every detail, every emotion, every fleeting glimpse of the supernatural that had come to define my nights at the manor. The story of the enchanted mirror, with all its beauty and terror, became a testament to the enduring power of love, memory, and the human spirit's unyielding quest for truth. I realized that while the mirror's power might never be fully understood by mortal minds, its legacy would live on in the hearts of those willing to listen to its silent song, a song of regret, of hope, and of the eternal dance between darkness and light. In the final analysis, the mirror taught me that every reflection, every shadow cast in the twilight of our existence is a fragment of our collective history. It reminded me that the past is never truly gone. It lingers in every whispered memory, in every sorrowful glance, and in every heartbeat that echoes the stories of those who came before us. The enchanted mirror's portal was not merely a gateway between worlds. It was a mirror into the soul, reflecting back the beauty and the pain that define our very existence. Even now, as I sit by the fading glow of a dying fire, the memory of that transformative night remains vivid in my mind. I can still feel the spectral man's gaze, the soft murmur of the phantom woman's voice, and the overwhelming sense of destiny that enveloped me as I crossed that threshold. The carved box rests on a shelf in my study, a silent reminder of the love and loss that have shaped my journey. And though the mirror itself has been moved to a place of reverence in a secure wing of the manor, its legacy endures in every whisper of the wind, in every shadow that dances in the flickering light, and in every heart that dares to look beyond the surface of things. This tale, as surreal and enigmatic as it may seem, is a living chronicle of the supernatural, a narrative where the boundaries between reality and the paranormal dissolve into a single fluid truth. It is a story of haunted reflections and eternal bonds, of secrets hidden behind silvered glass, and of souls that reach out across the vast expanse of time to find solace in one another. In the end, the enchanted mirror's portal was not a curse to be vanquished, but a truth to be embraced, a luminous reminder that the echoes of our past, with all their pain and beauty, are forever etched into the fabric of our lives. As the final snow of winter blankets the grounds of the old manor, I find myself reflecting on the lessons learned from my time with the enchanted mirror. I now understand that every soul, no matter how fleeting, contributes to the intricate mosaic of existence. The mirror, with its ever-shifting reflection at night, was a gateway not only to another realm, but to the inner sanctum of the human spirit, a realm where love, loss, hope, and despair coexist in a delicate, eternal balance. And though I have freed many of the restless spirits that once haunted its surface, I know that the portal will always remain, a silent sentinel guarding the secrets of the past, and a beacon for those brave enough to seek the truth hidden within the shadows. I leave you with this final thought. Sometimes, the most profound journeys are not those that take us to distant lands, but those that lead us deep within ourselves, where every reflection tells a story, and every shadow is a reminder that even in the darkest of nights, there is a light waiting to be found. The enchanted mirror's portal, with its supernatural image that changes its reflection at night, serves as a timeless testament to the power of mystery and the enduring beauty of the unknown, a beauty that, once seen, can never be forgotten. And so, as I continue to walk the silent halls of this ancient manor, I carry with me the echoes of 1,000 lives, each one a delicate thread woven into the tapestry of time. With every step, I honor the memory of the lost, the love of the forbidden, and the unyielding spirit of those who dare to glimpse beyond the veil of ordinary existence. For in the realm of shadows and light, every soul leaves its mark, and every reflection is a story waiting to be told.